Learning Mishna Yevamos, Parak Gimel, Chapter 3, Mishna Ches, Mishna 8. Now, just quickly, our Masechta began with the concept that if a man has two wives, and one of those wives is an erva to his brother, and then he passes away without children, and both his wives fall to his brother for yibum, the same way the wife that's an erva, there is no yibum done on her, there's no mitzvah of yibum whatsoever, no yibum, no chalitza, same thing applies to the other wife, to the co-wife. We also learned, and we had this yesterday again, that if, let's say, before the man dies, let's say he divorces his wife who was an erva to his brother, so when he dies, you don't have an erva and the co-wife falling together for yibum, then in that situation, the co-wife will have yibum to the brother, because when she fell to yibum, she didn't fall for yibum together with an erva, and just because at one point in time she was the co-wife of an erva, that does not exempt her from yibum to the brother. If at the point when yibum takes place, the erva is no more married to the brother. So now, the Mishnah, with that, Mishnah says, the kulan, and all the women, all the ervis that mentioned before, shoya ben kedushin or gerishin besafik, that they either had kedushin, or meaning they either had betrothal, getting married, or divorced besafik, in a situation of doubt, meaning there is a doubt whether there was kedushin. That means there is a doubt whether the erva was married to the brother, or there is a doubt if the erva became divorced from the brother. Which means then, based on those two doubts, you also have a doubt as to whether the other wife is a tsaras erva, is she the co-wife of the erva or not. And therefore the halacha is, in that case, those co-wives are going to have chalitza and not have yibam. You can't do yibam because, maybe she was a tsaras erva. Maybe she is a tsaras erva. Maybe she is the co-wife of an erva. You can't do yibam. You can't do yibam because maybe she is the co-wife of an erva. And to let her go free because she's that, you can't either because maybe she wasn't. And therefore, maybe she wasn't a co-wife, and there she doesn't make connection for yibam. And therefore, because of that doubt, those co-wives have to have a chalitza, not yibam. Now, ketzat tzvei kedushin. What is the case of a questionable kedushin? So here's the case. There's a man and a woman, husband and wife. Not husband and wife, a man and a woman, okay? They've already decided that they're getting married, let's say, right? They are standing exactly, okay? They're standing exactly 8 cubits from each other. Okay? From him to her are exactly 8 cubits. They are standing in what's called sidei reshus harabim, the sides of a public domain. The halacha is, in the sides of a public domain, if something comes within your 4 cubits, it's like your courtyard and you can acquire it. That only happens in a specific place. It will not happen in the public domain itself. It will not happen in a private domain. It has to be off to the sides, on the sides of the public domain. That is where the power was given to do that. Okay? So now, with that background, Zarak la Kedushin, this guy decided to throw the Kedushin to her. Okay? How do you do Kedushin? You give her something of value. You don't have to put the ring on her finger. You could toss it to her if you want to. Okay? You could toss her whatever the object of value is. You can toss it to her. All right. So what did he do here, this guy? This guy tossed it to her. And it fell in the middle. Meaning it fell, as the Mishnah reads, Zarak la Kedushin. He threw to her the Kedushin. Safek harev loy, safek harev la. And now there's a doubt. Is it closer to him? Is it closer to her? If it is going to be closer to him, then that means that never entered her 4 cubits. That means she never acquired it. But if it didn't land within her 4 cubits, okay, then she did acquire it. But we're not sure. The proximity of the two, because it's such a small area that we're dealing with, it's hard to sometimes tell where exactly it landed. All right, well, if you don't know where it landed, she's safek mekudeshes. It's a doubt, is she mekudeshes or not? If it fell within her 4 cubits, she's married to the guy. If it didn't fall within her 4 cubits, it remained within his 4 cubits, she didn't acquire it. So she's safek mekudeshes. So if that's the story behind the erva, if that's the story behind the erva's connection to this brother, that means it's a question. Was the erva ever married to him or not? That means the other wife that he had, it's a question. Is she a tsaris erva or not? Is she the co-wife of the erva or not? So if this guy dies, right, one wife was a suffix married to him and the other wife wasn't suffix married to him. So now the woman who was for sure married to him, and now he dies without children. So now there's a question: is that wife who was for sure married to him the tsara of the erva, because maybe the erva was married to him, or maybe she's not the tsara, she's not the co-wife of the erva because erva was ever married to him. So now when he dies, there's a question: do we do yibam or not? We can't actually do yibam because maybe you're not going to do yibam on this woman. She's the co-wife of an erva if the kedushin took place. You can't just let her go free because maybe she wasn't the co-wife of the erva because the kedushin never took place. And therefore, the Mishnah said before, chalitza without yibam. Now, that's the case of safek kedushin. Now, svei kerush. Now we have to go to the case of safek gerushin. The doubt about the gerushin. What's the case there? Now, these cases are going to be completely different. The Mishnah decides for the case of gerushin, we have some other cases we're going to throw in. Okay, throw in. Now, the truth is that the Mishnah could have said that the case of a questionable gerushin was the same case as before by the kedushin, right? Instead of giving her a get, he threw it to her, right? That's how great things are. He's throwing her to get, okay? And the question is, where did it land? Within her 4 cubits or his 4 cubits? Could have been the same case. But the Mishnah brings in other cases that would not necessarily apply to a kedushin scenario. So here we go. Svei gerushin. The gerushin, the questionable gerushin, what's the case? A get is typically written by a sofer, by a scribe. And there are 2 witnesses on the bottom who testify everything on top is legit. This is not a phony story. This is a legitimate case. This man does want to divorce his wife. He told the sofer to write it. It was all done good. Fine. Now in this case, you have a situation like this. The husband wrote the get. He wrote the get. Kasab iksav yada. He wrote it in his handwriting. And we know it's his handwriting. We have no questions. This is his handwriting. But there's no witnesses on it. No witnesses. You have a get. You have the whole text of a get written by the husband, so we know it's legit in the sense that he wanted to divorce her, but there's no witnesses on it. Okay? Next case. Yeshel Avedim. There are witnesses on it. Okay? Everything from that point is good. The aim by Zman. There's no date. There's no date on it. Okay? That's the second case. Yesh by Zman ve'im by Ela Eid Echad. It has a date. Okay? It's written by a sofer. And we know it's the sofer's handwriting. It's not a forgery. We know in this case it was the handwriting of the sofer. We recognize it. There's only one witness on it, though. Okay? In that case, we say, Zehu Svei Gerushin. These are the cases of a questionable get, a questionable divorce. So now in this case, the questionable divorce means we know that the erva was married to the brother, but now we don't know, was she divorced before he died or not? Because of all these questionable cases, we don't know, was the erva divorced before he died or not? If the erva was divorced before he died, then when he dies and the other wife falls to Yibam, she's not the co-wife of an erva. Because when the Yibam happens, there is no erva in the marriage. Or was it not a good gerushin? It was not a good divorce, and therefore when the husband died, both were married to him, and therefore the other woman is the co-wife of an erva. So because of that doubt, whether Yibam it has to be done on her or not, so therefore we say again, Chaltzais, halacha is she gets chalitza and no Yibam. Now it is very important to point out something here, and I'm going to read it to you from the notes. We called all these cases by the get questionable. Okay, so let's say the first case. It's in the handwriting of the husband. There's no witnesses. That's called a questionable divorce. What's questionable about it? What's the question?
You don't know.
You don't know what?
You don't know if he wrote it. Did he hand it to? Did he drop it in the hand?
We're not talking about that. He gave it to her in her hand. That's not the question. He gave it to her in her hand. The whole story is that he wrote it in his own handwriting. There's no witnesses. We're calling that questionable. What's the question? So the point is like this, and I'll read to you from the notes. Actually, these are not really cases of questionable divorce, but of gittin that are biblically valid, which the rabbis decreed should not be used for various reasons. According to Torah law, this is a 100% get, 100% kosher get. And we're not talking about he threw it to her, he handed it to her. Yeah. It should be a 100% kosher get. But midrabanan, but rabbinically, you're not supposed to, the rabbi said that these kind of divorces should not, these kinds of bills of divorce should not be used. Therefore, if the deceased brother gave the erva such a get before he died, she is really divorced. Therefore, the living brother must perform chalitza with the co-wife, since the co-wife was really his only wife at the time he died. Right? He has to at least give chalitza, because according to Torah law, she's the only wife when he died. The Yevamos, however, the Yevamos, however, may not perform yibum with the co-wife, since the rabbi said that these gittin, these bills of divorce should not be used. People will mistakenly think that the erva was still married to the deceased husband when he died, and will think that the co-wife of an erva is eligible for yibum. Meaning, since these gittin are not midrabanan to be used, which according to my understanding would be, if it was used, they'd make you do it over again. But the point is, midrabanan, these are not gittin that are supposed to be used. Okay? So people think that when the husband gave her this get, that really she was not divorced. According to Torah law, she really is divorced. And therefore, the other wife, you can do yibum on her, because she was not the co-wife of an erva when the husband died. But people think, right, that this kind of a get is no good, because the rabbis say you're not supposed to use this get. And therefore, if she goes ahead based on Torah law and yibum is done on her, people are going to say, hey, what's going on? She's a tzara of an erva. They think that the first wife was still married to the man when he died. And they're going to say, how can you do yibum on the other wife? She's a tzara erva. She's a co-wife of an erva. And they're making that mistake because since the rabbis say this is not a good get, they think, the rabbis say not to use this kind of a get. They think it's not a good get. And the first wife was never divorced. So if the co-wife has yibum done on her, people are going to say, you can't do that. That's forbidden. Absolutely forbidden. She's an eshazach. She's a brother's wife without a mitzvah. So because of that kind of mistake that can come up, therefore the halacha there is, we don't allow yibum. But since according to Torah law, there is yibum, because the first wife really was divorced, you can't let her just go free. She has to have a chalitza done. Oops. Okay. Now, V'da, says the Chofetz Chaim, the kashem sha'aser lahoitzi diba al chaveroi, the same way you may not speak badly about another person, kain al chafatzav aser l'tzidiba. You shouldn't say bad things about his property, about his objects. Okay, now that means, again, if it makes a difference, right? If you say, his tallis bag is kind of old, that may not make much of a difference. Okay, unless the guy's very touchy and he gets upset that somebody said that about his tallis bag. Okay, we're talking about a situation where saying something bad about somebody's property or object can make a big difference. Unfortunately, he says it's very common. A competitor, right? One storekeeper says about his competitor, oh, his stuff, it's not high quality. It's not good quality. Okay? All this because of jealousy or because, you see him as a threat. So you're not speaking about the person, you're speaking about his objects. But here, by speaking about his objects, you can be beholding the person. This is 100% Lashon Hara. It doesn't have to be on the person. It just has to affect the person. If what you say affects the person in a negative way, that is Lashon Hara. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful Shabbos. Have an easy and meaningful fast.
Thank you, Rabbi. Okay.
When you give a get, you say, yes.